Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing fantastically well. Okay, you guys are on form in the comment section already. You've got me giggling in the background like a little schoolboy. So we've got a bumper show tonight, of which I'm absolutely buzzing with. The thumbnail doesn't tell the story. We had Gabe, then he was out, then he was back in, then he's back out, and he's seen Brownie in the cast tonight, and he's got extremely excited. Gabe's back in tonight, everybody. And on the thumbnail, what it doesn't tell is Oscar Marriott is also with us. The John Motson microphone has officially been fixed for this evening. Yes, he's not going to be speaking with that mic up there through his laptop device. Don't worry, he's fixed it for this week. This week's special of the debrief. We've even got show notes, everybody. We are stepping it up this evening. So without any further ado, I'm just going to get into a couple of your comments. Boom, Gabe's well sick, yo. Brownie throwing cold. Brownie's getting absolute dump for his Wi-Fi connection, and we're going to get him in to respond to this slander. Mr. David Brown, how are you doing, mate? You're good.
Absolutely scandalous, mate. I was first ready and waiting since 20 past 2.
You were just getting...
It's not my fault. My router's in the west wing and I'm sat in the east wing. Bloody hell, come on.
I just love the fact that everybody's just remembered your Wi-Fi above you.
Yeah. To be fair to people, I mean, I don't want to swear to blow up your algorithms, but it was horrific. I might just start freezing on purpose. I might just start freezing.
800 devices on the Wi-Fi when he comes on the debrief.
It was Dylan. He had an iPad, laptop, phone, my laptop, his iPad.
Oh God, no Dylan when we're on the debrief. But mate, It's looking like you got that light in the background. It looks like a semi-professional setup. I'm not gonna lie, it's better than mine. So cheers for joining this week, anyway, mate. We're gonna get
no idea at my end.
We're gonna get John Motson and the COVID patient in right now. It's Gabe. It's Oscar. Right, we'll come to Oscar first, mate. Have you got that microphone sorted? Is it still going strong?
Listen to this.
It doesn't need to be so high. Pull it down.
Gabe, stop being a typical American.
Stop disrupting, Gabe. Stop disrupting. This is professionalism. Professionalism. You'll never see it like it from me. Yeah, mate, I've got it sorted. I'd kind of plugged it in, like sort of 2 minutes to go for this last week's debrief, hoping no one would notice, and then all of a sudden, all the comments are in there. What's happened to Oscar's sound? His mic's actually working. It's like, oh, great, yeah. Phone starts going off as well.
I genuinely thought at first that Movember had got out of hand. I couldn't see Oscar's hand at first. I could just see this sort of like furry, looked like a mustache beard right from the top, and I couldn't see a hand or anything. It just looked like Movember had gone wild.
I'll take that. Murray Walker, to be fair, I'll take that as well. I'm not going to try and do his accent, but I'll take that. He's a legend.
Please, please don't. Gabe, how you doing, mate? All good. He's had COVID. He's been in the show reel tonight. He's been out the show reel. What convinced you to come on, mate?
You said there's nothing wrong with you getting the show. So that gave me the strength. No, listen, Brownie, it's like a lunar eclipse. We don't always see it, but it's always special. So I can't not be in.
You know it's big with Brownie when he's the first name in the title above January discussion and anything else.
No, but you know what? Whenever Brownie has the time to be on this, there's always like, now we can get rid of that crap American game, as if we weren't on the show together for a whole year. So I love seeing that every time. It's like, or we get in the comment section, where's Brownie? I'm like, he's on the screen. Like,
I'm just hoping Connor's pulled out Luke from somewhere, and I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to sit back and let you two just go at it over.
I would love to have Luke on. Luke, if you're watching, I doubt you are, but if you're watching, we'd love to have you on for a special segment.
All about in chaps. Well, we've got an absolute stacked show this evening. Gabe, if you wouldn't mind putting yourself on mute whenever you just coughing into the mic, that'd be good.
Trying to turn away.
Cheers, mate. Right, okay, let's get on to the main topics this evening. Brownie, wanted to start with something. I've seen it, and I'm not gonna say where I've seen it. I'm not gonna say where I've seen it because I don't want to throw people under the bus. I'm not gonna say it's wrong either. Football's subjective. I've got an opinion on it. I'm sure you've got an opinion on it. At this moment in time, do you feel that Leeds United's midfield is being overran in games. There's a lot of talk about, especially at the weekend, obviously with Joel Perreault coming into that number 10 role, he has to sort of drop back into central midfield. Swansea as well, they seem to get 3 or 4 men at points in that midfield up against 2 of ours. Joel Perreault is trying to make up in that midfield, but I think he's struggling a little bit. And we're starting with a negative. It's not of course, because I'm not sure I agree with this. But what are your thoughts on that, mate? Are you thinking at this moment in time that the general consensus is that we're getting a little bit overrun in the midfield, or are you kind of happy with what we're seeing at this moment in time?
I mean, we've got to be happy. I mean, we've 1 defeat in the last 10, and if you look at the form table, we're top of the last 5 games, we're top of the last 10 games. I mean, it's not like at the minute it's hampering us too much, but yeah, of course, Perreault is a striker playing in the hole, really, isn't he? I mean, if you asked him where he'd want to play, I'm sure he'd, as any forward, would rather not do the defensive duty. They'd rather just be up the top end of the pitch. But if you look at results recently, I don't think we can be too unhappy. But I saw a statistic over the weekend comparing this Leeds team with the championship winning team from 19 and 20, and we've conceded 10 more goals at this point as then. So when you look at it like that, we are a little bit more open, but I don't want to harp on about the Bielsa days, but it's very similar. I mean, at the weekend, we looked like we were attacking like 1970 Brazil and defending like Nuneaton Borough at times. When Middlesbrough came forward in that first half, it looked like they could score at any opportunity. And it always felt like we needed, I'm sure everybody else felt the same watching it and at the game, that we needed another goal, because you always felt that they could get something when they attacked, and lo and behold, last few minutes of the game, they hit the post. So it always felt like we do give up chances. I mean, we've conceded, 2 at Norwich, 1 at home to Plymouth, 1 at home to Huddersfield when we're cruising, Rotherham goal. We seem to be giving away silly goals, and I'm sure we'll get on to why later with Gabe. But we do. We do. When you look at Leicester's defence, and they've conceded nearly less than half of what we've conceded, and I still consider us to be the best team in the league. I just think when you look at the top end of our pitch, it's so attack-minded that I just think it's the nature of the beast that we are going to give up chances. So yeah, that's where I kind of am at the minute. I can't be too critical because, like I say, we're top of the form guide over the last 10 games. We've lost 1 in 10, so whatever we're doing is working, and we've reeled in points. We could have been 17 behind Leicester last month, and we're now just 8. So what we are doing is working. But yeah, there are times where I think it will catch us out.
Yeah, there's so many facets to explore when you mention that, Brownie, and it's a good start in terms of the Bielsa thing, because there were points in the Bielsa regime as well where I did think we looked quite susceptible at the back. Obviously not to the latter part when COVID happened and all that sort of stuff that were like instrumental at the back. A lot of that was down to Ben White. But yeah, I agree. I still think there is a lot of impetus on us going forward. Give the ball to the front men, they'll get us out of trouble. Yeah, it's interesting to really delve into. Really.
Can't disagree with that. And I mean, the notes that you put out there about is Kamar overrated. I nearly fell off my chair. I didn't know which way you were going with that, because I think personally, and this will be a big talking point and divide people, but over the last recent games, I think he's been better than Ampadu.
Yes.
I would argue, mate, aside from Summerville, in the past 6 weeks, he's been the best Leeds player.
Mm-hmm. But at the weekend, for me, I always I come away from games and I always speak to my brother and say, who was your man of the match? And he stood out for me at the weekend. He was everywhere. I know Archie Gray got the plaudits because he was brilliant, and obviously Rutter, Summerville and all that. Perreault, they always get the plaudits because they score the goals, and Dan James. But I just thought Kamara, like you say, Oscar in the system, he's just there, constantly there. He's like a pest, a good pest for us, because he just breaks play up. He's so casual and calm on the ball, and I love him, to be honest. I really do. And the other talking point is the right back. Does Jez But then where do you put Archie Gray? Because I don't think you can drop Kamara. How would you drop Ampadu?
Right.
It's a massive headache for him. It really is.
Will you stop crossing over my topics, please, young man? And we can get onto that a little bit later on.
Not a problem, mate. You tell me when to shut up, and I will do
that. No, but you're right, mate. I think you're absolutely bang on with Kamara. Someone who I think could give a lot of insight into Kamara and a bit of analysis is Oscar. I know me and you, Oscar, were speaking on Glenn Kamara at the start, his influence, his impact. It really felt, and we've spoken on the debrief, and it's great to discuss really the coming of age performance he had against Leicester, where he was the best player on the pitch, in my personal opinion, in a real top tier clash. And it really advocates how this guy's been playing European football, and he's almost dumbed down a level to come to the Championship and played for Leeds United. He's been exponential so far, mate.
Yeah, he's at a top level. When we're talking about the best midfielders in the league, he's got to be right in the conversation in terms of all-round quality. I think even creatively, I think, forward passing wise, making things happen in the final third, I think he's done better than what I expected in that regard. I think tenacity wise, again, I haven't seen a lot of him at Rangers, only really those games in the Europa League and maybe the old Old Firm derby and that lot. He didn't come across as the most tenacious player, but at Leeds, absolutely 100%. He's in the press. I think that's gone up a level since he's come into the team. And I'd have to totally agree with Brownie that, yeah, I think since Kamara's come into the team on a regular basis, consistently, made it his spot, I think he has been better than Ampadu. And not that Ampadu's played badly, it's just how well, it's a reflection of how well, Kamara's played. And in terms of everything we needed in that midfield, I think he gives it us. It's the total opposite of what we had in midfield last season in terms of a lack of almost brains in midfield at times last season, in terms of being able to see the bigger picture on the pitch and legs to match as well, in terms of being able to get up and down the pitch and consistently as well. Consistency is so key at this level, and he's just such a consistent player. And you just know week in, week out, he's going to be one of the best 3 or 4 players on the pitch, if not the best player on the pitch. And that's exactly what you want. It's the same, across the spine. That's what you want within it. In terms of Rodon's giving us that at this moment in time, Kamara's giving us that at this moment in time, and Ampadu, okay, he's had a poor last couple of games. Maybe not poor, but below par last couple of games. It just kind of shows, in terms of one little drop off in form, it does really tell in this team, in the base of that midfield and the centre of the defence. It really does tell the standards are high there. And the fact we're conceding so many goals, we're going to come on to the topic of why that is, but I think it's quite telling now at this point. We really shouldn't be, 19 and 18, I think it is now?
Yeah,
it's over a goal a game. It's over a goal a game, I know that much. And that's just not a reflection of how this Leeds team defends at all. We're really good at the back, and I think we're as good as Leicester defensively for me. And I think
do you know what I love, Oscar? Do you know what I love about him? There's no scenario with this guy where he looks flustered. He could have his back to goal. He could be in the corner. He could be at the other end of the pitch. He could be under pressure from 3 or 4 men. I back Kamara to get out of it every single time. Every single time. I'd never see him lose your word. He's pressure resistant. Nay. He seems to have this check ability. He checks every single time, and it also seems to discombobulate the opponent every single time. But he doesn't lose the ball, and that is so undervalued in a football player. Yeah. I think keeping hold of the ball in the most pressurized position on the pitch, in my opinion, is a massive, massive plus for him. I think he's top draw for me.
The way we play as well, you've got Rutter, quite a high risk player. Rutter, in terms of every time he gets on the ball, he's looking to make something happen, which is great. Same with Summerville. And Perot and James, it's quite a direct front four, so we do turn the ball over a lot because that front four is always trying to make things happen. Having a Kamara and an Ampadu there, especially Kamara, just the way he just keeps the ball, that's his first thing in his head every single time he gets it. How can they keep the ball, and then how can they advance it forward and get us into good situations and control the game? And that's what he does. He's just, I think the one word I'd use to describe him is brain. He is just the brain of the team, Kamara, in terms of everything seems to flow through him one way or another. Defensively, he's the first one on the press, or defensively, or going forward, he's the one that gets on the ball and really dictates things. And Ampadu's a fine player on the ball, but I think it really does show you how good Kamara is. That I think there's quite a clear difference in quality on the ball between the two. I'd say Ampadu's the better player off the ball, but on the ball, there's no question about it. Kamara, you just never feel like he's going to lose the ball. When you lose the ball, it's almost like a collector's item. You're thinking, Glenn Kamara just giving the ball away there. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. That's the consistency we talk about, and just such a top player. And if you think about what his actual value was compared to what we paid for him, I mean, it's bargain of the season for me, Glenn Kamara.
Lastly, for me on Kamara, we've lost one game in the last 10, if you remember, Stoke away. And that was the night he didn't play. It can't be a coincidence. He's not played in the only game that we've lost. I mean, that sounds harsh on Gruev because we haven't really seen much of him. But the one game you take him out, Leeds get beat. I think that just...
I guess Brownie, another player you can lump into that, and we'll get onto this in a different conversation, really, is Joe Rodon. You lump him out for the Southampton game, you put Coops in there, and Leeds get absolutely mauled. It's interesting, really. But Gabe, let's bring you in, mate. I want to move on to the next topic of conversation. You guys keep getting your comments in the section below. Fantastic panel tonight. Look at all the names. Look at all the faces. Look at them all.
I'm not going to lie, I thought I was going to have to come off the stream for a bit because I was reading through some of the comments about this mic and I thought, I'm going to die here.
I've just realised that it's 2 hats on the bottom, no hats on the top. Fantastic. I didn't do that on purpose either. Gabe, we'll come to you, mate. First, we'll introduce you to it. Farke, Daniel Farke. Me and Brownie were talking at the start of the season about where we expect Leeds to be as a club in the Championship. And I think unanimously what we expect from the ownership of the club, obviously choosing the manager, choosing the players, choosing the staff, is what we expect is top 4. We said that, me and Brownie, start of the season. When you look at Daniel Farke so far, how are you assessing his tenure at Leeds United?
Yeah, you got to start with the overall kind of job he's done, considering the difficulty he had over the summer, which was considerable. I know we weren't the only team to drop down, but we had, some significant problems with players and trying to get out and all kinds of, I think he's navigated that incredibly well. Additionally, I think that the results, if you take away, again, that first sort of 3, 4, 5 matches in the beginning of the season, was very, very good. So for me, if we had to give him a grade, I think he's earning an A here. I think there's a little bit of room. I don't necessarily want to say improvement, but there are some things I don't love personally. It could just be a matter of preference. I don't like pre-planned subs. So he seems to be a guy where he's not going to make a change until around the 70th minute, 68th to 70th is like the sweet spot. And it does seem that he's predetermined based on his match plan, how he's going to make those subs, who's going to come in. Now, again, the results have been great and, that matters. But I do worry a little bit about, there have been times where we've come out really, really lackadaisical for an entire half. And then instead of making an immediate change at halftime, we've sort of waited till the 68th, 70th minute. And it seems at times that, we could have done with making changes earlier. It's hard to criticize the guy. I mean, these are small points of criticism and questions I have is really more of it. But I mean, right now the results speak for themselves. The underlying data for the team's performance is good. We do create a lot of chances. We have a number of players in the attack that are incredibly dangerous. I will say that you'd expect, now that the team is up to speed with what Farke wants, you'd expect the results to continue, because when you look at who's on this bench in our attacking third, any team in the division would love to have a Jaden Anthony or would love to have a Willy Gnonto coming off the bench. So
it's crazy when you forget those names, don't you? It's
you do.
In game, you forget those names, which is crazy.
It's 100%. And if we go out and make a couple signings in January, you don't imagine that gets any stronger. So you don't want to penalize Farke for having the most tools and saying, well, he should be doing better, especially given the summer he's had. But I think one thing that gets me nervous, and it has little, I guess, less to do with Farke, more of how we're looking at the division. Everybody's sort of saying the same thing, that, we expect Ipswich to slow down, or we expect Leicester to slow down, or even Southampton to slow down now that they've found some form. But those same people expect us to keep winning. And so we're in a position now where we have to, if we're going to make up that gap, we don't have to be perfect, but we have to continue in the kind of vein of form that we found. Can Farke do it? Yeah, I don't think there's anybody better equipped for the job by a long shot. And I'm really pleased with the job he's done. Some questions I would have, again, are, when the match needs a personnel change, is he a little bit slow to make those changes? And does he have an idea in his head of how he wants the match to go, match plan wise? Because it's a type of manager, man. They just pre-plan their subs. And sort of, I remember people being critical of Bielsa for it as well. At a certain point in the match, we knew Tyler Roberts was going to come on, regardless of what the match needed.
I think my internet might freeze if you mention him again.
I can just see the rage from Brownie above me.
It wasn't a criticism. It was just a note that some managers have that way of doing substitutes. I'm not a professional manager. Brownie is, right? So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just saying these are questions I have. And so far, he's answered every question we posed. So I think he's doing a great job.
I mean, if you think back to August at the start of the season, I remember the Birmingham away game. And I think he had Geldart, Shackleton, Pervada.
I think that's when I had us finishing 12th, mate.
They were in the front four. Ayling was starting. I think Creswell started that day as well.
Yeah.
If you fast forward just 4 months, well, not even 4 months, because it was the middle of August, wasn't it? So 3.5 months. In that 3.5 months, we look like a well-oiled machine, like going out, win a game, tick it off, next one, go out, win a game. Because I've seen elements of that in the last few games. Swansea, definitely Middlesbrough. We get ahead in the game, and it's like we're playing just keep ball, see the game out. In that, I think we got the ball in the 83rd minute of the weekend, and we still had it in the 86th. We weren't interested.
Is there a criticism about that at the minute? And it's obvious in the last two, but maybe it takes Leeds a while to get going, doesn't it? And when I say a while to get going, the first 5 minutes, because we respond very, very quickly, which is a credit to the side. But also when you're going down, the consistent games, obviously 1-0 down inside the first, 2 or 3 minutes, it's almost like they get to the game and maybe think that, I don't know, it could be a level of complacency. I'm not really sure what it is. But when they get into the reaction is something that I've not seen before. The reaction to us going down, it's almost like all hands on deck for the opposition, because Leeds are full throttle back at them really straight away.
I do get that, Connor, and I think the Rotherham game in particular, it had an element of arrogance about us that we just expected to turn up and win the game. That's how I felt coming away from. I was frustrated with just.
Missed opportunity, wasn't it?
It wasn't so much that. It was a missed opportunity, totally, but it just felt like, well, we'll turn up tonight and we went, because it happened at Norwich, I can just chuck on 3 more forwards and we'll win the game. And that performance in particular just stunk of a bit of arrogance for me, but I do think that he's done a fantastic job. That's not arrogance from Farke. I mean, arrogance as a collective, the team, everything. It just, even fans, we turned up thinking, right, we're going to turn these over. And it was more of maybe a reality check, which has been good to then see us go on a run of winning more games, which, let's be right, we've been in complete control in most. You look at Huddersfield, Plymouth, Swansea, we've been in control in all our recent games. Leicester aside, where obviously it's a good team, the top of the league, you're going to give up chances. But yeah, I just think the weekend in particular, there was a few people saying, I needed to make subs, but sometimes you don't need to make subs just for the sake of it. Yeah. Like, at what point, because it was on a knife edge at part of that, when do you chuck on a new player, 3-2? It's difficult, but I do agree with Gabe. In some games, it's been crying out for a change, and it's not happened. But how do you argue with a man who's taken 25 points from the last 30?
Exactly. It's sort of like it's not finding things to criticize, but it's more of a question than a criticism. And to your point, Brownie, and to Connor's question, the early concession thing has really only been very recent. We started off controlling most of the matches we played in earlier, and I can't help but correlate some of this with Pascal's injury. He hasn't looked quite the same since he's come. I mean, he came back really fast, didn't he? From a surgery, and it does seem that maybe he's just recovering full fitness, and maybe the confidence isn't quite there. He has. I mean, I remember us being on the show last year talking about some of that deer in headlights defending and just stepping up and kind of going on strange autopilot. it happened last match where we got caught over the top. So it's sort of, it reminded me a little bit of last season in that sense. And for me, that doesn't come down to Farke. I feel as though if he, the further away he gets from that injury, the better things are going to be. But yeah, it is, in terms of Connor, the response, it's nice to see not only us get hit in the mouth and respond, but to continue to put the pressure on. And there have been moments where, we have seemingly taken the foot off the gas. But even though our team is very, very good, I mean, just nobody controls a game of football for 90 minutes besides, Manchester City, Barcelona. We're nowhere near that level. So
just on the subs, lads, and everybody, I'm guilty of it as well, saying, we need to make a change. But because we've been that dominant and playing that well, who do you take off?
Right.
How do you take Summerville off? How do you take Dan James off? How do you take Perot off? How do you take Rutter off? I mean, at the weekend, I think he should have gone off a little bit earlier. I didn't think it was his best afternoon. He seemed quite frustrated. And again, he's another one that's been suffering with injury. But I mean, Ampadu, how do you take him off? Kamara, how do you take him off? We've got these abundance of quality on the bench to bring on, but how can you say to Daniel James after 55 minutes, well, you need to come off here?
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Like, if you've got, are you saying? Are you Brownie? Are you saying there? Are you saying, so? Let's say if Kamara, or let's say, well, for argument's sake, Ampadu, we get to the 60th minute, and when you're turning around and saying, how can you take him off? Is that a performance thing, or is that because you maybe don't trust who's on the bench? Because there's going to have to be points where fatigue's going to creep in, and you're going to think to yourself, well, we need to make a change there a little bit. And I agree with you. I think, and we've not seen enough of him, but if you're winning a game 3-2 against Middlesbrough, and this might be the same with any squad, and I think it probably is, but can you really afford to take Ethan Ampadu off for Elia Gruev? And is that then a question of squad depth?
Well, I mean, go back to the Huddersfield game then. We did see the subs. We were 4-0 up, cruising, and we did see subs after an hour. But again, like I said, when Kamara didn't play at Stoke and we made all them changes, we got beat. So that's got to play a little bit of it into it, but not so much. I think it's performance. These players, especially at the top end of the pitch, they're producing such big goal contribution numbers. How do you take them off after an hour, 75 minutes? It's very difficult. I mean, I saw a tweet over the weekend. I forget who saw it. It was a really good tweet, and if I do see it, I'll credit them. But
can't have been gay.
Not the Melier tweet. We'll get to that. But it was mentioning Adel Tourat's season where he had it might have been you, Oscar. Actually,
it might have been me. Actually, the amount of hate and stick I get from QPR fans every time I put that out, I just think, I keep doing it every week.
Such a good tweet, and it was. Yeah. It was mentioning about the goal contributions for Adel Tourat.
He's already halfway to what Tourat did, and he's only started 14 games, which is just madness.
So when you look at things like that, and Rutter's very good with his goal contributions, and Dan James has scored in 5 consecutive home games. How do you take them off?
Yeah.
It's hard as well because it's not like Gnonto and Anthony have been particularly brilliant when they've come on. I think they're both really good players, but they've not really massively said, "Oh yeah, you bring us on, we're gonna be able to keep the intensity that James and
Oscar. I'd probably look at. Do you know the one I'd disagree with quite unusually? It'd be Anthony. I do think Anthony looks a real threat when he comes on.
I'd rate him massively, but do you not think last couple of games he's been a little... I mean, it doesn't help when he's coming on for 10, 15 minutes at a time.
Well, he scored against Rotherham.
I've got...
true, yeah.
I've got my own opinion on this with the subs, because all of them, you're right, Oscar, they're not looking like there's Bamford, Anthony, Gnonto. They're the ones that seem to be coming on regularly, and all of them aren't setting the world alight when they come on, but they're coming on in games that are done and dusted, or there's 5 or 10 minutes left. And when I say done and dusted, I mean, I know it was only 3-2 at the weekend, but every time that ball, then you could see Ampadu wanting to slow the game down, kill it at every opportunity. We were making passes. I think we went across the pitch about 15 times in consecutive passes just to keep the ball, to run the clock down. And it was similar against Swansea. When we scored the third against Swansea, it was like job done, see the game out, tick it off, move on to the next. And these lads are coming on in games where we're not having to go full throttle and go win a game and be in attacking areas. We're just happy to keep the ball. So Gnonto...
Which must be frustrating. Must be frustrating.
The only one that does spring to mind was the Rotherham game where we had to go and impose ourselves, and Gnonto was the person who put the ball across for Anthony to actually put it in. They both did impact the game, but similar for Poveda as well. He came on in a game recently. I think it was Swansea. Might be wrong. Recently, he came on in a game, or the Rotherham game, and it's like
no, it was Swansea. I think it was Swansea. Yeah.
And how do you get into good areas when the team are just happy to keep the ball and sit on the lead?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. That.
So I think it is difficult for the lads that are coming on. So it is a tricky one, but when you're coming on,
something we need to get on top of, though. With so many games coming up in December, we're going to have to rotate from time to time. And then, as you said, Brownie, that I always go back to that Stoke game as well, because that was the game where we really did rotate. Gruev came in out of nowhere. I think Gnonto and Anthony both started that game, and Summerville and James were on the bench. And the drop off in performance was huge. And don't get me wrong, when you drop people like Kamar and Summerville out of the team, there's going to be a drop off, but it shouldn't really be that big.
Oscar, maybe that was it. Oscar, maybe that was him saying, it's a tough game. We need a little bit of rotation here. There's a couple of niggles. I'm going to give you an opportunity here. This is 90 minutes, 70 to 80 minutes, whatever it was before they started churning. I'm going to give you an opportunity. And to be fair, none of them stuck got a claim for that one. Gnonto was poor. Anthony was poor. Gruev was particularly poor. Maybe that sort of put him on the back foot a little bit.
I don't think if we do rotate, we're not going to do it like 3 or 4 players at once. We're not going to change both our wingers, change the whole midfield and that lot. And I think it's quite telling that, obviously Pascal, I'm not sure is fully ready to have come back so soon. I think you've seen it with the last 2 performances, probably his 2 worst games of the season since he's come back in. I still think he's a top player, don't get me wrong. But I think the fact that Cooper or Creswell haven't been trusted alongside Rodon shows that maybe we are going to be quite reliant on this, starting 11. And it's only really, I think you look at it out the players that are on the fringes of the first team, it's only really Spence that I think who's really knocking on the door. And that's only because he's coming back from injury. We haven't really seen him, in this Leeds team yet. I don't think there's anyone else who, unless we have a really poor run of form or someone particularly loses form individually or we have an injury, I can't see there being many changes. And I think we're just going to kind of Bielsa style, kind of go for it, these next sort of 6, 7 games and probably keep it quite similar in terms of the team. And that might be where, Ipswich and Leicester might have a slight edge on us. But again, in terms of what we're doing, it's not like we're having to fully, just to go on to a positive about it, we're not having to massively, push for 90 minutes at this moment in time. We are, as Brownie said, we're able to manage games from sort of that 60th minute onwards, where we're just keeping the ball and letting the opposition do the running and all the work, really. And it's sensible. It's what we've done. We've won a lot of games this season by a goal, and it's not like there's been any of those games where I'd say we've looked really under the cosh and looks like it could have gone the other way. I think that you look at Bristol City, Leicester, we were pretty comfortable. Last 2 games I think we've been pretty comfortable as well in general. We are managing these games well. It's not like we need Melier to make save after save after save.
Good job.
I knew someone was going to jump in there. I knew it. I teed it up.
Oscar,
but it is true. It's not like we're reliant on good luck or anything like that.
On that as well, Oscar, look at the backlash that followed that Stoke game. Why are we not playing Summerville? Why are we resting these players? That's all that came after that game. And then you go the other way and think, we need to rest players, but look what happens when we did. And yes, he did make a lot of changes that night. And I think you're right, Oscar, it coming up over the Christmas period where there's games here, there and everywhere. I don't think you'll see 4 or 5 different players in each game. There'll be 1 or 2 here and there. And I agree. I think Spence is the one that could go in at right back. And then you're chucking Gray into midfield. He would be the cover for Ampadu or Gray would be the cover for... Kamar would be between them 3. You could be able to use 2 rather than putting Gruev into a game from the start. I think people will be a lot more comfortable with seeing that.
And I think that'll be the case. I don't think it'll be a case of if Spencer's coming into the team or say Ampadu's coming out of the team or whatever. I can't see it being a case of Gruev just goes in and Gray doesn't move across. I think Gruev's very much 4th choice now. Pretty solidly 4th choice in that midfield because he's not really done enough. I know he's hardly played, to be fair to him, but he has to really show something. When he does get an opportunity now, he has to really be, spot on. To make any kind of inroads into that team.
But I like it. I like the fact that the centre halves are set in stone, the front four's set in stone. We know that left back's going to be Byron whenever he's fit. I like the fact that we are turning into a bit of a machine and just turning up to games, tick it off, next one. The Christmas period's going to be massive. But over the last 5 games, in fact, we've reeled in points on Leicester and Ipswich, 8 and 7 points on both of them. So it's not like we're doing anything wrong.
Well, it's like this Leeds team. It's like a mixture of, like, say, the Bielsa team and like the Gary Monk Leeds team, if you like, in terms of it manages games like a Gary Monk team did, but it plays far better football like a Bielsa team does. It's far better on the ball and creating chances and that lot. And it's got quite a nice mixture to it at this moment in time. And, I think really looking at a lot of Ipswich, for example, that Coventry game, they were really holding on towards the end there. Missed penalty. I've had a lot of games Ipswich where they're never really comfortable. It's always a absolute dogfight, every single game for Ipswich. And you've got hope physically that'll start to tell for him.
Oscar, I want to get on to Ipswich. That's my next point. Gabe, I'll bring you in for this one, mate. How the hell do we stop them?
I think they're going to concede a lot of goals. They are a very open team, Ipswich. And the reality is you can get at them. They concede a lot of chances, even against poor teams who don't generate a lot of good chances. I think that we're fortunate to have a back four who, up until the last couple of games, has been very, very solid for a whole 90 minutes. So there are some questions, but again, I think we already talked about Pascal just coming back from injury and hoping there's nothing more than that. And some of the stuff that I think we are working through, in that, we haven't been perfect, obviously, or haven't been quite at Ipswich or Leicester's level. It's because we have some really young players, young, inexperienced players who are going to look like world beaters one day. And I'm talking about Summerville and Jorginho and those guys. And other days are going to have tough days, right? When I look at just the amount of attacking options we have, the spine that we have in the midfield, I know he hasn't gotten much of a look in, but Ilya Gruev is a very solid defensive midfielder. I know he didn't necessarily cover himself with glory in the small window of opportunity he's had, but I just think we're better than Ipswich in depth. We're going to, despite maybe some poor goalkeeping statistics, in terms of the number of big chances we concede per game, we're doing really, really well. And
they're brilliant. They're brilliant at the back. I think Leeds are brilliant at the back at the minute. I think
we defend as a team as well, don't we?
I think Gabe will get onto it in a little bit. There's a little bit of a problem there, but yeah, go on.
Well, we defend well as a team. Both of our central midfielders are very good defensively as well. None of the wingers have any. One of the things, we can talk about the deficiencies in Dan James' game, but one of the things that he's very, very good at is tracking back and keeping defensive discipline. A big point of data that I hadn't seen, and I think it made sense, but it's really nice as a contrast, has been our side's discipline this season, and just the lack of card accumulation. A huge difference from even last season. It just doesn't stop, does it? Bradley paid to say this as well. I love it. I love it.
Shout out Bradley.
Yeah. So anyway, the point being, I think there are just a number everywhere on the park. I think that we have, with the exception of maybe the goalkeeper, not maybe, I'm hedging, definitely the goalkeeper. I think that we have areas that we can hurt Ipswich. So, yeah, I believe in our side against them.
For me on Ipswich, you'll know more than anyone, Connor. I called top 2 at the start of the season, and nothing's changed my mind. Even
I did. I'm going to say,
to be fair, yeah.
I'd agree. I did say Ipswich would be top 2, but yeah.
No, Leeds. I called us being top 2.
Yeah, you did. You did.
And nothing's changed my mind. Even their next run of games, we play before them on Saturday. Don't get me wrong; it's not a given we go to Blackburn and win, but we can be sat 4 points behind them before they kick a ball.
It's going to be a tough one, that, innit, Blackburn?
Last month, we could have been, 15, 16 points behind them. We're talking that we could be just 4 points behind them come Saturday at 3 o'clock. And then they've got a tough game themselves. I thought Middlesbrough came to Ellen Road and I thought they were decent. I thought they had a go. I thought they were probably one of the best teams to come to Elland Road this season from what I've seen.
I'll tell you what, Brownie, just a little caveat. So I don't want to take you off point, but I thought the striker, Latte Lath, I thought he was excellent. I thought he was excellent. Very,
and
very good.
They've got at the weekend. They're at Middlesbrough or Ipswich, which, I mean, is a tough game. They've got their derby coming up against Norwich, which is a bit like when we
turned a bit of a corner.
Which is like when we play Sheff Wednesday, Rotherham. Form seems to just go out the window. It's a derby. Anything happens. And then they've got us and Leicester back to back. This is a key spell for them. I think they've got Leicester twice in coming up. They've got Leicester in January as well. So they've got some very tricky games coming up themselves. I know we've got some difficult games ourselves. West Brom away around Christmas time is a tricky one, but Ipswich have got to come to us when we can be 4 points behind them come Saturday, 3:00. We could be above them come Christmas, and then this is a daft conversation. I just think, like Oscar says, they're never really in total control. Yes, they're getting wins, but the wins have dwindled away through November. I think they've hit a spell of 1 win in 5, which was what's allowed us to creep back in. I just think, going on Oscar's point as well about the depth and everything, suspensions and injuries when they come in over a Christmas period, I think it's Leeds, Leicester, and Southampton, and nothing's changed my mind from the start of the season. And that sounds harsh on Ipswich because they've been great value coming up from League One and they're doing really well. But the depth of the teams around them is better. You saw that when we went to Ipswich. They had to make some changes. They had to put players in that don't normally play, and we ended up putting 4 past them.
You also wonder, Brownie, and it's not been a big thing yet, there's not been that many Premier League managers sacked. Also, obviously, we've seen Heckingbottom go today. You do wonder if you're Ipswich and you're doing as well as you are, and it's purely system based, which it is, because we've got there's arguably 8 or 9 teams in the Championship with better caliber players than they've got. So you look at Kieran McKenna and you think, if you're a bottom half Premier League team, I'm looking at Crystal Palace, potentially looking at Burnley, potentially looking at sides who maybe aren't in the best of form. McKenna's a proper shout. It's a really good shout. So they've got to pray that they keep hold of Kieran McKenna in this period as well.
Yeah, of course. He's working wonders with Ipswich. He's won promotion, and then he's going for another promotion. So yeah, he's a young. I mean, I think he come through at Man United. They were highly sought after at Man United in their coaching staff. So he's something that's going to be on a radar for a lot of clubs. And it'd be lovely if he went to one of them, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
Oscar? The other thing as well is, Ipswich players as well, say a Leif Davis, will there be Premier League teams looking at him in terms of what he does going forward from left back? Broadhead as well, who's had a really good season. I think it'd be easier for Premier League clubs to get, I hope so anyway, to get players from Ipswich than it would be from us. I don't think Ipswich could command the fees that we could. So, that could be another factor to consider as well. Broadhead, you could certainly see, someone like a Sheffield United maybe looking at him and thinking, that maybe a bit
West
of a
Burns
spark in their attack.
West Burns, but
West Burns, yeah. I mean, that goal he scored. That's it. It feels like every game Ipswich they're getting either a wonder goal. It just feels like something's happening for him every single game.
Was it Jack Taylor with the wonder goal not long ago as well?
Yeah,
it was an absolute stunner, wasn't it?
Game before, wasn't it? Was that the midweek game? I think.
Yeah, midweek stunner.
Belter. Just feels like that, or a penalty miss, or something seems to be going there. They're a great team. Don't get me wrong, but it just feel like every little bit of luck they could get, they're getting. Every little bit of bad luck.
At the end of the day,
they're getting.
We've gone to Leicester and Ipswich and beaten both.
Yeah.
We've won at both their grounds. They've both got to come to Elland Road. West Brom might have something to say, but it's already looking like 2 from 4. I mean, we're 10 points inside the playoffs already, and we've only just got into December. The top 4 look pretty set for me. Like I say, West Brom might have something to say about that because they've had a bit of a resurgence. But when you look at Leicester, Ipswich, Leeds, Southampton, they're just turning out wins, all 4 of them.
I think my only note about Ipswich that impresses me in this, I agree with the comments gone now, but somebody had said in the comments that it reminded them a little bit of early Bielsa's Leeds, not necessarily in terms of the playing style, although I think there are some similarities. But they definitely, I mean, they're a team that's greater than the sum of its parts. And I think that does stand out to me. I mean, outside, I don't think the casual fan, not the committed fan, but the casual fan could name more than 7 or 8 players on the Ipswich team. That being said, it's a team sport. The manager has them playing how he wants them to play, and I would back them in a playoff match for sure. A team that operates like that. So it's definitely a good story, and acknowledging that player quality isn't the same as disrespecting the side. And I think we all have a lot of respect for Ipswich in terms of what they've been able to do. But in terms of the teams that are likely to slow down just on paper, and granted the matches aren't played on paper, you would expect them. And it's started to happen a little bit, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. Obviously, they've won the last 2 games, but before that, it was 1 win in 5. I just, looking at the fixtures coming up, I just think ours look nicer, even going into January. I mean, we've got Birmingham at home, Preston at home, Norwich at home. Ellen Road is a fortress. I mean, 7 wins on the spin. I just don't see a period where we go 2, 3, 4 games without picking up wins, whereas I can see Ipswich doing. They've done that.
Right.
They've done that in November. I don't see Leeds doing that. I don't see Leeds going through a spell of 2, 3, 4 games without picking up wins. But fair play to them. If we carry on at the rate we're going, we finish with like 90 odd points. If we don't finish in the top 2 with that, then fair play to anyone who finishes above us, because in years gone by, 38 points from 19 games has us sat top of the league now. But that's very Leeds, isn't it?
We won it with 93, I think.
What are our thoughts at the minute about? I mean, obviously we've got Rutter. There's a lot of acclaim around him at the minute in terms of being the best creator and just being the best player in the league. I'm not sure he is. I'm not sure he is at the minute, and I think we've got.
People get really angry about this, by the way. If
you got angry,
no, I don't. People do when you say he's not.
I think. Let me just throw this out there. I think at the minute, in every single game, there's Rutter, and I get it. And he's the stylish one, of course he is, in terms of like the pick. And I understand how influential he is. Oscar will come to the fore with a lot of reasoning here, and I think he's going to be sort of like picking Rutter. But for me, Summerville is just the expert. Yeah. Like what I expected from this guy was something decent in the Championship, decent output. I'd have still had, this is crazy, but with what we had going into the season, I'd have started him on the bench. Honestly, I would have done. But what we have going into, the remaining calendar of the Championship with this guy, he is, for me, Brownie, you're there at every game. We're watching every single game and really analysing, like yourself, who's the main guy. It's Summerville every single game. And I've said sometimes that my only criticism of Daniel Farke is, I think at points during games, it's give the ball to Summerville and see what he can do. Give the ball to Summerville and see what he can do. And he's the one who gets us up the pitch. He's the one who takes men on, brings the entire team as a unit further up. I think he is the best player in this division.
Yeah. I mean, you might want to clip this up, Connor, but I agree with you.
What?
Hey.
I do. I think if it got to January and you had a club and they were taking one of them, I think we'd want to keep some. I'd personally want to keep Summerville with the way it's gone. I think, and this isn't anything against Rutter. I think he's been brilliant for us, but I think he's that much of a likable character. He's always got a smile on his face, and he's that loved. He gets away with a bit. That's my opinion. If a certain person missed the chances he does, and he's missed a fair few good ones this season, be getting slaughtered. I mean, there was 2 one-on-ones on Saturday, but he does so much good work on the ball, breaking lines, turning with the ball, bringing others into play. He has a bit of credit in the bank, if that makes sense, in games.
Yeah.
You go through games, he's missed some big chances. I mean, the Sheffield Wednesday one stands out for me in my head. He's through on goal. The one at the weekend, just after half time, he's through on goal. He's through on goal in the first half at the weekend. He has missed, but then you look at his goal contributions and the brilliance. So you just think, dearie me. And then you bring his age into it. He's a young lad. I heard that for years about Tyler Roberts. He's young. He's got to give him time. So I'll say the same for Rutter. He's performing better than I thought he would from what I saw at the end of last season, put it that way. But going full circle, yeah, in the comment section, the chance at Hull, he's through on goal again. His finishing can improve, I think, but his all-round game is brilliant. But if I had to choose between Summerville or Rutter to keep in January, I'm turning to Summerville. That he just gets people off the edge of the seats. Not saying Rutter doesn't, but he gets the ball and just drives, commits people. And I mean, he must be a defender's nightmare.
It's a really hard question, isn't it, Brownie? It's sort of like
it's a difficult question because I think both of them equally are. And I think a lot of the times in games where we're struggling to break teams down, it's get it to Rutter or get it to Summerville and let them do a bit of magic. And they're both equally fantastic players. Yeah. And it is hard.
Yeah, it's sort of being asked like to pick between like your favorite motorbikes or whatever, and they just do they do a different job. Connor. Well, what's that face for? Like motorbiking isn't a popular thing.
They could have just been such a better analogy of the things that you prefer to motorbikes.
I don't have children, and I can't pretend. I can't.
Yeah.
What's that?
I can't afford one motorbike. Never mind two. to be honest with you, mate.
Well, so a couple things stand out to me. Like Brownie's dead on about the finishing. And he should be criticized for that. He is top of the championship in terms of expected goals plus expected assists per 90 minutes. Just in terms of shot creation and chance creation, what he's generating is pretty remarkable. However, third in the championship is Crescencio Summerville, right? And there's only a 0.04 point difference between them. So, I mean, the really... For me, it just comes down to the end product right now, acknowledging that they're both really, really young players. But the question is, like, who would you, if you had to get rid of one and keep one in January, which, of course, is not the scenario we're actually looking at. But hypothetically, you would have to pick Summerville right now with, 7 goals and 6 assists. I mean, it's just...
I think, just before you jump in, I think it helps... It's helped Rutter. The missed chances has been helped by Rutter, but other players are chipping in with lots of goals. So Jan James is chipping in, Summerville's chipping in, Perot's chipping in. Because when you look at the goal, we scored 34 goals in the league, and Rutter's got 4. Now, for a team sat third, pushing top 2, your centre forward needs to be on more than 4 goals.
He's got 7 assists though, Brownie, and he's sort of playing.
This is what I mean.
He and Perot do that sort of switching thing,
contributing very well. And I'm not saying take him out of the team or anything. Not at all. I'm not saying get rid of him. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm not saying he's rubbish or anything like that. I'm just saying the only thing that's slightly letting him down is the chances he's missing.
Yeah.
And it has been autocritical because he's so good on the ball and he excites me and he's one of my favourite players. I don't want this to be construed that I'm slagging him off or anything like that. I'm just saying your main centre forward after 19 games should be on more than 4 goals.
Just going to get into a couple of comments as well, a couple of super chats. Hi Connor, what do you think about Tony Mowbray being sacked and Swansea manager today, but more Sunderland? Could be an advantage on it, mate. We had the exact
Jesse
same
Marsh for Sunderland.
Yeah, chill out, Gabe. Gonna see Gabe with a red and white background.
No way. Nothing would make me happier than him to go to another championship squad and just get absolutely pelted.
Yeah. What do you think about Tony Mowbray being sacked? Listen, mate, there's going to be a bounce back effect. Sunderland are a well-run side. We all know it. Rotherham looked very, very decent in comparison to what they did the match day before. So yeah, it seems to be teams sack the manager and then they play Leeds. It's always been the case. Swansea manager as well. Yeah, interesting one. Could be an advantage or disadvantage. I think, we'll have to wait and see, mate. We've got to worry about Blackburn first. Miss Tory says, do you think James and Summerville play better than Gnonto and Summerville? The forward line, do you think it's best connected bunch of Van der Longwell? Big up to Oscar and his taxidermy Mike. Yeah, I mean, I'll put that to the group. Do you think James and Summerville play better than Gnonto and Summerville? Oh dear.
Yeah,
I know it's form, and I know what. Yeah, I know.
I think
this is where Connor doesn't want to go against the data, but he also wants to go against the data.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, to the question at the start, you were saying, Connor, about Farke and how he's done, and I mean, the whole handling of the Gnonto situation was brilliant.
Yeah, it was.
don't want to play for us, right? Go and train over there. We're not going to sell you. And he's managed to integrate him back into the team.
Mm-hmm. I've said Brownie. This is how I distinguish with it. I think Premier League, I'm going Gnonto all day. And we've seen it, in my opinion. Listen,
yeah, I was going to say, Connor, is it because we still don't know what Willy is as a player? We've seen flashes, but we do know what Dan James is at the Premier League. And I think is what you're saying which is what? That's what I'm saying. We have a known ceiling with Dan James in the Premier League that isn't great. And we've seen enough flashes from Gnonto, but I think, and I'll let Brownie make his own point, but I think what he's about to say is we've seen flashes from Gnonto in the Premier League, but we haven't seen anything sustained. And I don't have a lot of confidence in a guy that can't break into the team over Dan James and can't make a huge impression at the championship level. Like, it makes me wonder was the play that we saw in the Premier League that was good, was that the exception and not the rule? Just a question. I'm not saying it is.
Yeah, no. Who's the better player, Gnonto or James? Better player ability wise? Who would you say?
Well, honestly, it's more about being a player than ability.
Right, there's two things here. It's like the Rutter and Summerville debate. I think Rutter is the better player technically, but I think Summerville's the better player overall. Because I mean, Summerville, he's a machine in terms of his end products, and I think with James and Gnonto to a lesser extent, I think his improvement's been absolutely massive. Not technically, I don't think he's doing anything in terms of like being able to beat like 3 or 4 players at once and whip balls into the box endlessly like a Gnonto can. But in terms of all his goals are similar goals in terms of what he does. What he does is very, very repetitive. And listen, I'm not saying he's a technical mastermind or any kind of respect, but what he does is very repeatable. You know, he makes that run into the back post, gets it. He's always in the right place at the right time. And I think his finishing is becoming more and more confident. Gnonto is the better technician, no doubt about it. He's the player who's got more, technical ability. I think the fact is, you saw last season, that Villa away game last season, I think really, really stood out to me when he's just absolutely, I can't remember who it was at right back. I think it was Matty Cash at right back. He honestly, Matty Cash could not get a kick in that game at all.
Don't forget Man United away as well.
Yeah, Man United away. There's loads of games. In that period of the season, in that early winter, he was absolutely unplayable. And I don't think Dan James or many players we've got in this squad can get to that level. But that's the thing, Gnonto, can we get him back to that level? That's the question mark. I think, he's a top player, Gnonto. But in terms of what we need from that right-hand side, someone to stretch the pitch in behind, does Gnonto do that? Someone who can get onto the back post, and make those runs into the spaces that, Rutter leaves to get on the ball. I'm not sure Gnonto can do that. And I think it's all about the balance of the team. And it doesn't look as good when one of that front four comes out. And I think that's what you got to go with. And yeah, I know what you're saying about the Premier League, Connor, in terms of Gnonto showing what he can do there. And I think with a far better manager, in Farke, than Marsh, there's no question about it. But at the same time, I think Dan James has got more to give in the Premier League because of what he's no doubt about it. It's not his improvement this season isn't just down to us dropping down a level. He's improved himself. The way he finished some of those chances in the last couple of weeks, no chance he does that at any level, before Farke came in. So no question about it. Huge improvements in him. And we've seen this before with Farke. We did it with so many players at Norwich. Onel Hernandez played his best football under him. What's Onel Hernandez done since? He is a very good manager at coaching attacking talent. I just think, I think Gnonto's the better player, but in terms of who I want in the team right now, it's got to still be Dan James for me.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going to go back to you, Connor, where you say we saw it in the Premier League. I mean, I went to nearly, I did. I went to every game. Did we? There was flashes. To
be honest,
there were flashes of brilliance, but he got more yellow cards. He was like a petulant child at times. He got more yellow cards than goals and assists last season. And I mean, I think Dan James went to Fulham and did all right.
Gnonto. I'm not having Gnonto's not the better player. I think we know that. Sure,
it can't just be about that.
No, it can't. It can't. You're right. It can't just be about that. It cannot just be about that. It has to be about effort. It has to be an endeavour. It has to be. You're right, 100%. I just wonder, and everybody's right in the comment section. Listen, everybody's backing what you guys are saying. Everybody, and I am. Doesn't mean I'm right whatsoever. Football's subjective. My point is, I just think if Gnonto would have had the exposure that Dan James would have had, I still think we'd have seen very similar numbers and arguably a less wasteful Willy Gnonto. But Willy Gnonto isn't getting into the side, and there's a reason he's not getting into the side. I'm just saying, if we're in the Premier League, and it doesn't even mean anything because we're not, but if we are, and when we are, hopefully in the next year or so, who would I rather have in the Premier League? Willy Gnonto, Italian international, Dan James, Welsh international, of course, Dan James. I'm picking Willy all day.
On the other side of that argument, though, what if I told you that we could have a guy who had 30 some odd matches for a Manchester United team that finished third in the league and scored 3 goals and 6 assists? Would you have that guy over Willy Gnonto? Because that's Dan James.
The thing is, for me as well, I've got to be fair to Gnonto, that the point I made earlier about players coming on in games when the game's done and there's not really much impact you can do in 10 or 15 minutes. He hasn't had a lot of game time, but whose fault is that?
Yeah.
Right. He started the season. Willy Gnonto started the season. It's his own fault for throwing his teddies out the pram and saying he wasn't going to play. That's the reason why he found himself out of the team.
We still is it harsh to say? Is it harsh to say? And I'm not picking fault, but I'm watching these games, and I'm still thinking Dan James is, and his output's been really, really good.
I think it is harsh. I think it is harsh this season.
Yeah, maybe it is. I think it's maybe when I'm judging him.
There's still bits that can improve in his game. You know, there's 3 or 4 times in the first half when you're thinking he's one-on-one against the defender, just get a decent delivery, and a few times it went straight into the goalkeeper's arms, and that is what Dan James is as a player. He is quite erratic, but I think Farke has got that side of his game and just focused on the strengths of it, you know, and the fact that he can get himself into so many good positions. He is so tenacious. He is so fast in that kind of sense.
Yeah, that's it. The pace just causes so much problems. It's such an outlet. He's
always there. You know, when Ampadu, Kamar look up, first thing they can see in the corner of their eye is Dan James making that run, Summerville making the run the other way. And, you know, the other way of looking at it is say, it's a bit of a weird argument to make this, but say if Sinisterra stayed at Leeds, okay?
Yep.
Say if Sinisterra stayed at Leeds.
We're not even having
Sinisterra would have played in the left wing because he's a left winger. Would we have seen the same Crescencio of Summerville or Gnonto or Dan James had Sinisterra stayed? You know, it's not always... I don't think we would have done. I think, you know, Summerville absolutely looks far, far better on the left wing than he did in the 10 role, because that's where he was having to play when Sinisterra was in the team. And I just think sometimes, you know, it's not always about having, you know, the best players, you know, all over the place. It's all about the best balance for the team in that kind of respect.
Yeah, but, to add to that, Oscar, I fully agree. And I mean, this is a genuine question for you, Brownie, as a manager. I'm sure you've had players, both, and all you guys have played as well, who are in the team that are way... I had a guy I played with was a way better player than most of the guys on the side. But for whatever reason, he either couldn't put it together, or he had an attitude problem, or just being a better player doesn't make you a better option sometimes. Not always the best choice for the team. And that's what I wonder. Willy Gnonto was a young guy. He had a tough situation last year, like every Leeds player did, where they had to play for a million different managers with drastically different styles. And, you know, he's clearly gotten bad advice, but he chose to follow that advice from his agent or whoever it was. And there are times where we see players come on and we're just like, we're blown away by the skill that we've seen in microcosms, but players are who they are over a period of time, day in and day out. And I do wonder with Willy, and it's just a wonder. I'm not saying he is a problem. But I do sort of wonder, like, there's a reason he's not getting game time right now. And it can't be. I mean, Daniel Farke has all the incentive in the world to win as many matches as possible.
There's also a reason only Everton were coming in for him in the summer.
Right. Something I was going to say, but when you say there's a reason he's not playing, I saw a tweet, and it wasn't you, Oscar, this time. It was Johnny Cooper, who puts out loads of stats. It was Dan James is the first player since Peter Lorimer in 1971 who isn't a striker to score in 5 consecutive games at Ellen Road. Now,
wow.
How do you drop that play? How does Gnonto get in front of that play? Because you're not dropping Summerville. You can't put Gnonto in.
Can I say something as well? Like, what I will say for him, I do think with the amount of time, I think he gets a lot of the ball, Dan James. He gets a hell of a lot of the ball. I do think he's almost got a 55 to 60% success rate in this Leeds side, and sometimes that frustrates me, but that's because I want Leeds to be perfect, which is just not going to happen. It's never going to happen in any element of football, especially championship level. And I look at Willy. This is where I'll concede. I think Willy Gnonto's ceiling is a lot higher. You know, we've got to forget that his age in comparison to Dan James as well. I think his ceiling is a lot higher than Dan James. I think Dan James' attitude is superb. I think you look at what's happened to him. He didn't want to get loaned out to Fulham. He's come back. He's been fantastic for Leeds. And a lot of his finishes actually have been very, very decent as well. So there's a lot of people saying, Connor, give Dan James a break. I ain't taking Gnonto out right now for Dan James. No chance. I'm literally just giving a hypothetical scenario of if Leeds are in the Premier League next season, what am I choosing? Am I choosing a guy with a higher ceiling, or am I choosing Dan James? I personally don't think, and I will stand by this, I don't think Dan James works in the Premier League whatsoever. I don't think that works. I think in the Championship, it works. I don't think it works in the Premier League. I think if we're looking at upgrades of Illan Meslier, and a lot of you guys will say that's harsh. I understand that. Guys on the panel say it's harsh because he's in form, and we would give him a chance in the Premier League. But I'm looking at upgrades in the Premier League.
I hear what you're saying. That's why I said before about
throwing James in there.
Yeah, I agree
someone
that
like Jack Clark, for example. Would you go for him? If we went up and Sunderland didn't, would we do something like that? And I think whatever happens, if we do go up, we probably would need to bring another winger, because if you look at it, we haven't got a lot of proven quality there, in terms of Premier League level on the wings. As good as they have been in the Championship, and it's the same for up front as well. We've already had this debate about Joel Perreault. Is he good enough for the Premier League? And for me, probably the same answer as Dan James is what I'd give for. The same answer for Joel Perreault is what I'd give for Dan James. Really, is we don't really know, because there's definite improvement in Dan James. I don't think it's just because of the drop down in the league. The way he strikes the ball now compared to how he was striking the ball when he first arrived, it's absolutely couldn't be any more different. There's no chance. Those last couple of goals Dan James has scored. Does he score that goal in the first season under Bielsa? That one against Swansea, that one against Plymouth. I don't think he even tries that, to be honest, that one against Plymouth. I don't think he has the confidence to try that. And we can't underestimate the difference in confidence at this moment in time between James and Gnonto. And listen, the Championship is a very fickle league. We've seen a lot of, everyone forgets, Rutter had an absolutely shocking start to the season. First 3 or 4 games.
Yeah, we were all very nervous.
Before we got to Ipswich away game, Rutter was a player who's probably getting the most criticism in the whole Leeds team. Things can change very quickly, and it can still happen for Gnonto as well. But we can only really judge off the here and now. And the here and now is that I think Dan James is the much more effective player. And if Dan James isn't the answer in the Premier League, I'm not sure why Gnonto would be the answer in the Premier League as well, if that makes sense.
I think it's harsh to judge our time in the Premier League last season as well, because let's be honest, the football that we were churning up was horrific. I mean,
but we're not doing that. We're not doing that with Gnonto.
That's what I mean. Either player, I think it's harsh to. I mean, it depends what systems you want to play. If you want to play in a counter-attacking play, I think Dan James is perfect. If you're looking to play on the counter, pace, believable. Would he be better away from home and Gnonto better at home? Maybe. They're things that would come into a manager's thinking. But to look at any player last year under Marsh, Grazia, and Allardyce, I mean, just thinking about that, it just makes you just think.
3 weeks of Skubala as well. Bless him.
Yeah, I just think this year is just much more exciting. So anybody and we're in much more control in games. So anybody who's playing this season is going to look better. I think that is, and I agree with Oscar. The here and now, with the numbers Dan James is producing and the way Leeds play, quick attacking football, I think Dan James is perfect. And
right, let's move on, Brownie.
Finish on wingers, just to finish wingers.
Finish on it.
I know you love this one. Would you have Jack Harrison back next year? He's doing all right.
Move on. Next topic.
But that's another one, though. If Jack Harrison left,
we can't do it, Connor. Move him on.
But if Jack Harrison had stayed at Leeds, Summerville wouldn't be playing on the left wing. So sometimes things happen for a reason. That was the only point I was making. You just, Sometimes things happen for a reason.
Get it. Oscar, get it on a fridge magnet, mate. We don't need to talk about it now. Jay says, top lineup and chat tonight. Hit the like and sub. I'm only joking, Oscar. Everton go down. Would you go for Pickford? Ooh, it's as if this perfectly transitions us into a certain chat, which has been thriving on the Leeds United network. Guys, we're going to leave it on this. We're going to leave it on this and the Blackburn prediction. So make sure beforehand you slap a like on the video and we'll let you go. But it's been fantastic tonight. Okay, let's get into it. Right. What? God, Christ, we speak about this all the time in the debrief. But I want to preface this by saying I want to get Brownie's take on it, because us wafflers have had our take on it. We've spoken about defensive reassurance. All people keep telling me, Connie, you need to stop talking about it. It's because we're getting into January. We're going to be getting into changing certain positions. And a lot of you guys are saying that you'd like to change GK in January. So I want to discuss it. It's a topic that is thriving on socials. Thanks to the American in the corner there. But let's speak about Illan Meslier again and try. Look, there's probably going to be a downturn in people watching at this moment in time. But I think we've got to get Brownie's take on it, because he's not had a chance.
Thank Brownie for something before you Brownie. Thank you for using the hologram term, because I've been using that gratis for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, let's be right.
And that's your original term.
Let's be right. Last season, he was a hologram. There was that period of time where there was 13 consecutive shots on target that went in net? Went in.
Brownie. Simple question. And a lot of there's a super chat that's come in. Would you take Pickford if Everton went down? So people are interested in the goalkeeper position.
Yes, of course I would.
Has he improved this season, or is it Leeds United improving as a whole that's making him look like he's improved?
I think he has improved, but I do agree that Leeds being better and him not having to face as many shots has helped. How I sum it up when I speak about Meslier is, how many times as fans are we watching Leeds? We've got all the play, all the ball, and the opposition get one shot and it goes in
at the near post.
It's so often. It happened at the weekend, Borough. I'm going to go back to our last defeat, because I've done a bit of homework. You'll like this, Connor. So Huddersfield had one shot on target. It went in. Leicester, fantastic save in injury time. Brilliant save. And this what helps Meslier. He pulls out absolute worldies now and then. His highlight reel on YouTube must be unbelievable with some of the saves he makes. But Brendan Aronson looked good on YouTube. When I YouTubed him when he signed, he looked good on YouTube, right?
He's even got a Leeds highlight reel that looks good.
Plymouth had 2 shots at Ellen Road, scored 1. Rotherham had 1 shot on target against us, went in. Swansea had 2 shots on target. I mean, the goal, I don't know where he stood. I think he was still waving in traffic into the West End car park. He was in Casilla territory, wasn't he, for that Swansea goal? And then again, Borough, they've had 2 shots on target in the first half and they've both gone in. You can't blame him for the header. Should he have someone on his back post? I don't know. Who sets up his set pieces? Is it him? Is it Farke? Who chooses not to have anybody in the post? We've waxed lyricals over Archie Gray, and rightly so. He's been twisted inside out far too easy at right back for the goal, but then it's gone in his near post. I just feel watching games that every time, not every time because he does make good saves, so that's wrong, but it just feels like the opposition get a limited amount of shots and the majority go in.
That's what I was saying, Brownie, about we've conceded 19 and 18. There's no way, when you look at how Leeds have played in games, that we should be conceding that many goals. Just simply look at the stats. We're far better than that, defensively, in terms of what the numbers say. And you can only go back to Meslier's not done enough in terms of stopping the shots he should save. I mean, that first goal against Borough, I saw a couple of people say that's being hit with a lot of power and force and that lot. I'm thinking, no, I want my keeper saving that, to be honest. I think Meslier 2 or 3 years ago saves that no problem, to be honest. But I think he's got to save
that. It just feels like to me at games, and the Borough had a chance that got flashed back to about the penalty spot area, and he smashed it high into the south stand at 1-1. And I just felt if that goes on target, it goes in. And that's where I'm at with Meslier. If a shot goes towards our goal, 9 times out of 10 it goes in. And
the data supports you, Brownie. So there are two stats. One is a very basic statistic, and the other one is a little bit of an advanced and nuanced statistic. And I want to go through it real quick. So the basic statistic, and in the question of has he improved? Well, yeah, last season his save percentage was 59%. This season it's 62.5%. So that's not a good improvement, but technically he has improved. So the save percentage of 62.5% is woeful. It's in the 3rd percentile. That's really, really bad.
Yeah,
he's 4th bottom in the league. Hang on just a minute, Oscar. Let me just get through the second stat. So this is a statistic that lets you know what kind of chances on goal are coming in. Are they chances with a high XG? That means like this is an easy tap in that the keeper has no chance. Or are they more closer to 0.1, which means it's a chance that keeper should be dealing with. So per shot XG over shots on target, Meslier is at 0.3 per 90 minutes. So that means every hack at the ball that's going on target, there's a 0.3 XG rating versus on a scale of 1. So that means it's an easy, they're not all easy, but on average, the shots he's facing are not difficult. These aren't super worldy strikes. Some of them have been, fair enough, that does happen. But like Brownie just mentioned, a header that he didn't save, you don't expect him to get those, right? That's a really high XG, a barely contested header in the middle of the box. But for some of these, he should be doing a lot better. The data shows that one of the most fundamental things as a keeper you're taught is to cover your near post. He gets beaten near post far more often than he should. And as Brownie just rattled off, there are various, and it's not even like this is divergent from his career. His career save percentage is 65%. That's not a good save percentage in any division. That's like middle to low end of the pack in every single division where they carry this statistic. And it's not a new statistic. It's like, that's how you know someone's good at shot stopping. It's basic stuff, and it's just not good enough. Now, I've had to answer this a lot this week. Does this mean that Meslier, people have been asking, well, how many matches has Meslier cost us? As if the metric for success as a keeper is you single-handedly didn't hand the match over to the other team. That if you don't do that a lot, that somehow means you're a good keeper. Can you imagine that being a standard for success? Well, I didn't single-handedly ruin the game, so I did my job. That's nuts. Absolutely.
Do you think
nuts.
as well, though? Sorry to interrupt, Gabe.
No, you're good.
I think with the keepers we have had in the last couple of years as well, the fact you go from, you go back from Meslier, you go to Casilla, Peacock Farrell, Wiesveld, pretty much up to Rob Green. Rob Green's probably the last keeper I think we've had where you've said, yeah, he saves us a lot more points than what he costs us in mistakes. I think that's probably
against the USA in 2010 World Cup. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's one of those. But you should be happy about that. But yeah, and that one against Newcastle, the Dwight Gale goal. Absolute stinker, that one. But you look at it and think it's almost like Meslier. He almost gets a bit more praise than what he probably should do because of how bad the goalkeepers have been, before him in that kind of respect. I think that's where that how many games have they cost us kind of metric comes from, because that's what
it's a defeatist metric.
Did.
Because you look at Darlow, who was horrible against a Salford, so it's like, obviously maybe Darlow that's not the answer. Well.
The last year when I was tearing my hair out during that spell of goals, it was the defence in front of him was really bad. And then I heard, Chelsea want him, PSG want him. Who was the other ridiculous club that got linked with? Someone else. It might have been Man United, actually, at one point. They were linked with him. And you just think, all right, well, why have they not come and got him then? I mean, he's still never been called up for the France squad, despite being in the 21s for so long. I think they've still got a 38-year-old in the French squad, goalkeeper-wise. There's a reason nobody's come and got him. Chelsea went and got Sanchez instead. Man United went and got Onana. Nobody's come in for him. He's in the Championship.
Let's say hypothetically, because it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But honestly, I just want to get from everyone in the chat as well. I want to get a general consensus here from all of you lot. Simple yes or no answer. Would you have him in the Premier League? Yes or no, Brownie?
No.
Gabe?
No.
Oscar?
Right now, no.
Yeah. I think that's. I think we're looking at Championship, and I think he's okay for now. But once again, I think you've got to have a lot of Leeds. I agree with what Brownie's saying, and there's everyone's saying no in the chat. Everybody, and that says a lot. I think at this moment in time, he's getting bailed out by what we've got going forward and us controlling games. I agree with Gabe. I think the XG against stat today was insane. He's fourth bottom. Whereas our defence is actually pretty decent this season, as we all know. I think we've seen this through the Premier League with Elan Melier. Even when Leeds are doing okay in games, it seems to be the amount of shots on goal, a ridiculous amount go in, or even when we don't face that many, one will go in. And it's like, how has that gone in?
Connor, how would you feel if we were to go into a playoff match with Elan Melier in goal?
Yeah, Christ alive.
The thing is, he burst onto the scene.
Right.
He burst onto the scene at Arsenal away, and you're thinking, "Oh my word, who's this guy?" He were pinging balls all over the place. I remember being at the Emirates that night. His distribution was so good, and he's just not really kicked on.
It's hard. But he's not even. But it's not even. It's not even right
at all.
But he's not. He's not good with his feet. We saw it at the weekend. Balls were going out of play left, right, and Charlie. But also, it's like this myth that his handling's got better from set pieces. He's still flapping. He's still missing. He's still getting bobbed.
The Huddersfield goal at Ellen Road.
Yeah.
It was shot from 25 yards. He drops it and the tap it. Genuinely, I mean, Casilla got slaughtered for the goals he gave away. If you went through the last few seasons, he has given a lot of goal. He's been at fault for a lot.
He has.
I remember Norwich away under Bielsa, and he kicked the ball out for a corner, and they scored from it. Just after Rafinha scored, they got the ball, went around the other end, flustered, kicked it out for a corner. Under a little bit of, and they score. There's just so many.
But as well, I've seen that the boy in the bandana here. What I will say about this comment is he's like some of that father who needs a top GK to learn from. What I will say is with Elan Melier. No,
I do agree.
Yes, I agree to an extent. But what I will say is, okay, a top GK, that's never going to happen in the Championship. You've got a player in Carl Darlow who, listen, he came in for Leeds, wasn't great, but he's got a hell of a lot of experience under his belt. And, there can be a little bit of learning from then. He's had Joel Robles, who's had a massive Premier League experience, La Liga experience under his belt. Not only that, but Elan Melier, you always hear the same thing. Oh, he's young. It's always the excuse. But now, he's 23 years of age. It is still young. We all know that. But the amount of games this guy's amassed, there's really no excuse now because his evolution has been that of really a 26, 27-year-old in terms of games, minutes played. So we're getting to a point now where, listen, Leeds aren't suffering because of it. But I do wonder if when they get to the summer months, if the club are going to look at it and think, right, okay, this needs to be altered because there's a big problem here because our defence has actually done really, really well this season, but we're still letting in X amount of goals.
He's played over 100 games for Leeds in the league. He's played a lot of games, and yes, he has saved us points. But in the words of Roy Keane, that's his job. He's meant to save shots.
Over a season, you're always going to have moments where you say a keeper's made a top save. It's always going to happen.
Like people go, we're just not used to that is why he's there. He's there to save shots, and we've got to the point now where people are using saves he's made as a reason why he's so good. Like it's unusual that he saved one.
Well, that's it. I think people are almost dining out on that Leicester save. It was an incredible save, but over a season, you're hoping that your keeper's going to be pulling out at least 4 or 5 worldy saves to keep you in games. That's the point of it. Keepers are supposed to save your games. They are at points. It can't all just be down to Rutter, Summerville, Perot. A goalkeeper has to save you in games at points.
The biggest thing for a goalkeeper is consistency. You look at an Alisson at Liverpool. I'm not expecting Melier to be Alisson level. I'm not saying that at all. But the big thing that separates Alisson from me from pretty much every other goalkeeper in the world is the consistency. He doesn't have to make that many top saves. He does make top saves, but it's the consistency. He's commanding on crosses, good with the ball at his feet. Anything that's savable, he saves. Doesn't let anything in that he shouldn't let in. In general. And with Melier, it feels like it's a bit like the Joe Hart thing, where it's shots that are close to his body. he just seems to really struggle with. It's like the really difficult saves, he seems to have a better luck with than he does with the ones he should save, if that makes sense. And the near post and shots close to his body, there's a lot of those this season that he's let in. The Rotherham one as well, really. You look at that. That's 2 points there.
Yeah, Rotherham. Forget about that one as well.
All came at a really bad time in the game as well. And
Southampton away.
Well, Southampton away is a good example. We were 3-0 down after half an hour in that game. Southampton have had 3 shots. It wasn't a 3-0 game. Both teams were even in that game. I don't just want to put it on Meslier, but
I'm the same. I'm with you on that. I don't want to pinpoint Meslier too much because I don't. But that statistic just lingers in my head that whenever another team get the odd shot, it just goes in. And it's happening.
That's the thing. It is a team game. So obviously no clear shots on target happen without defensive lapses. I think there seems to be a misunderstanding with some folks just in the Twitter sphere about, well, if you say that the Meslier needs to be doing better, then you're saying he's singularly at fault for all the goals. No, that's not what anybody's saying. It's saying for a team that's contending for a top 2 spot, you're going to go up and down the side. You're going to look at the forward position, the midfield position, the defenders. You're going to say, how are they playing versus expectations? And all of them are in the mid to upper percentiles for what they're being asked to do on a number of data points. The only member of our side that's underperforming drastically in every statistical category is Illan Meslier, which, Brownie, I remember on the debrief last season, I was arguing for him as a defender, being like, these are huge defensive lapses. It's like, I remember us having that conversation. It's not, I don't want Meslier to fail. We're pointing out that he is failing now for what he's being asked to do, which is to stop the ball from going in the back of the net when you have a reasonable chance to save it. That may improve. I hope it does, because realistically, as we've talked about before, we're probably not going to splash money on a better keeper to bring him in here in January. So I hope he improves. But he needs to.
Do you think we will bring another? I personally don't think we'll bring another keeper in.
No,
and the other thing was, I don't. For all that conversation, I don't think he'll cost us promotion. I think we'll still get promoted. So,
if we're in a playoff, I'm a little bit nervous, but yeah, we should still be able to get top 2.
He's not Casilla, Peacock, Farrell level bad. I'll say that much. And those two did really, if we're being honest, they cost us promotion that first season combined. Really, I don't think he's that bad, but I think the frustration for me is he showed at a harder level in the first season back in the Premier League. I thought he had a superb season. Yeah, he made some mistakes that season, but he was superb, I thought, in that first season, back in the Premier League. It just feels like it's almost like since the lockdown ended and fans are allowed back in the grounds, his confidence has just gone almost. I'm not saying it's because of that, but I'm saying it's almost like that was like, it's a bit like Bamford, a similar kind of situation where it's like since the lockdown ended, fans are back in the ground. It just feels like his form's just completely dropped. And we're talking about 2 seasons now at least of sustained below par performance now. It's not just 1 month, 2 months. It's a long time now.
That's the key point, Oscar. It is 2 seasons of more question marks than good performance.
And what I will say, let me just chime in here, is Liam, I understand what you're saying, mate. Meslier is our number 1 end of it. Won't change. Stop moaning. It's pathetic. Look, it's not a moan, Liam. It's a lot of discussion point at the minute. It's everywhere on my comment section. People are asking me on Twitter. I think it's a discussion point, and we have to discuss these things. We can't, unfortunately, in football, just say, "Oh well, we're not discussing Rutter, Summerville, Byram, anybody on the pitch because we're not supporting our boys." We are supporting the lads. It's a discussion topic. We've always got to do it, mate, and that's what these channels are for. Look, you know what you're getting here. You know what you're getting here, unfortunately, but it is what it is, mate. You've got to be able to talk about these things if the fans are wanting to talk about it.
The other way of looking at that is that, we're not like, I don't think we're being that harsh on Meslier. I think it's harsher to almost say that he can't do better than what he's doing. I think he can do better. I think isn't that being better to Meslier than sort of saying that,
isn't it? It's trying to be.
Yeah, I think it's being constructive.
Just a question for Liam. It'd be interesting if you to ask Liam what is the weakest position for Leeds. I'd be interested to know what he says, because where would you say we were weakest? Because it's not in attacking areas. We're solid in midfield. Centre halves are solid. Right back maybe because Archie Gray's not a right back. I think Sam Byram's been excellent. So where are we weakest? And for me,
Liam's not concerned about the cover. He's
I don't
mad
think
at me.
Liam. This is the thing. Listen, Liam, we're not just going at you, mate. But you've come with quite a strong comment there, and
no, it was a genuine conversation with Liam.
Yeah,
for me,
and
like,
what you've just said,
where weakest.
And what you're saying there, mate, is unfortunately you're not coming with any real evidence there. I think it's your personal views on what you think Gabe thinks of him, but it's not that whatsoever. I can tell you we all support him. As I say, in the Premier League, Gabe was the biggest advocate for Ilan Meslier and the defence in front of him being poor. So I think you got to come with a little bit more than that.
He's not got Alien and Cooper to blame now.
Yeah, that's right. If anything, negative Brownie has turned me on to Ilan Meslier in his hologram comment.
So anyway, lads, what I want to get on is I want to finish on that. Obviously, I wanted to discuss that definitely. But what I want to get on to now is Blackburn. What are your thoughts on that game? Are we looking for 3 points? Oscar, do you think it's going to be a bit of a tricky endeavour, Ewell Park?
Yeah, tough game. Our record's not great there. I know we won there in the promotion season, but I think before that it's been pretty iffy, to be honest, at Blackburn. Yeah, they've got some decent players. I think Schmodix is the one to look at and think, in that 10 role, he's got a lot of goals this season. Really good player, and it'll be a good battle between him and Ampadu and Kamara, you'd think, in that middle of the park. They're a good team, Blackburn. I don't think they're quite a top 6 team, but they're one of those teams that are consistently in that top 10, top half of the table, and decent at home as well. So, yeah, I think it's a game we should win. I think it's a game we will win, to be honest. They had a pretty poor one at Sheffield Wednesday at the weekend. But, yeah, I think going forward, I think we can cause that defence a lot of problems. I think Blackburn's talent is in the attacking areas. I think Wharton's a good player as well, but most of their talent is going forward. I think defensively they do struggle, and I think it's a game that should suit us. But again, it's a game where we might need a big performance from Meslier from time to time because they do have talent going forward. So I think I can see another potential high-scoring one. To be honest, a bit like Middlesbrough, maybe a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, I think we should have enough to beat Blackburn. I think certainly if you go into this weekend, both teams have got tough games between us and Ipswich, but I prefer our game to Ipswich's, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think it's a tricky game, but I think this season, they've only taken 12 points from 9 games at home this season.
Oh wow, really? Wow.
Yeah, it surprised me, mate, because I normally see Blackburn doing well at Ewood Park, and it's been their away form that's helped them this year. They've lost 3 of the last 5 games at home. They've lost to Leicester, Preston, Swansea. So, listen, there's no easy games in the Championship, but I think it's a game that we need to go and to take 3 points. More to put pressure on Ipswich before a tricky game at Middlesbrough for me. I think that's the key. We kick off early. And I think we have to be targeting 3 points with what's coming up in the weeks ahead, because I think Sunderland away, I think that's a trickier one for me than Blackburn.
Poor home record again, Brownie, Sunderland.
The average is surprising because, again, like Oscar, Blackburn, Sunderland, you normally think of these teams have been really strong at home. But yeah, I think it's a game we go and win.
Yeah, I agree. Blackburn's a weird team. I've watched them 3 or 4 times this season, and a couple of the times, Connor, I texted you. I was like, Blackburn's playing some really good football.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
And then I've seen them, and they've been really bad. They're just really inconsistent. I mean, they drop points to Coventry, they come back, they smack QPR around. They barely squeak it by Cardiff, then they go and lose against Swansea. They lose to Preston, they smack around Stoke. They beat world-class manager Wayne Rooney's Birmingham 4-2, and then they lose to Sheffield. So, if anything, they're just radically inconsistent. It's one of those matches where I'll be nervous if we don't start sharp and if we don't take our chances, because they do have the ability to hurt us. But honestly, this is a match we should win.
Yep. All right, let's go round with some score predictions, lads, before we finish off. Gabe, we'll start with you, mate.
3-1 Leeds.
Oscar?
Yeah, agree. 3-1 Leeds.
Yep. Brownie, as the guest, what are you going with, mate?
2-0 Leeds. Clean sheet from Elliot.
Hey.
I'll go with a 2-1. I think it's going to be a 1-0 start from Blackburn. I think we'll claw it back again.
Connor, you've been going for 2-1 predictions a lot
chat
lately.
Now, me being at the game on Saturday, looking at the WhatsApp chat, and it's 20 messages from Connor about Meslier.
Oh.
I've been quite quiet because I've been weirdly confident with most games this season. I've been weirdly confident. So yeah, a 2-1 win for me.
It has been kind of nice to not have the WhatsApp group blow up with Connor going, "Oh, FFS," and just in a state of disarray.
Me losing my mind. Yeah. Right, guys, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, everybody, for stopping by. Make sure you leave a like before you leave the video. We've got additional bits on Patreon. And we're going to leave it there. Brownie, thanks so much for joining us, mate. And as always, thank you so much for you lads, Gabe and Oscar, and of course, everybody in the chat. As I say, we're going to leave it there, and we will see you in a bit. Cheers.